Good evening. This is Wallace Gator Bradley, President of United in Peace, Inc. And let me start off by saying to God be the glory. And let me let my viewing audience know I appreciate you for watching the show and sharing the show on YouTube. And I want to give a special shout out to the chairman of United in Peace, Inc. She's also the producer and director of this show. And her name is Terry Marsh, someone that I've been married to for 37 years. Don't fault her. Just thank God for blessing me. I got a very special guest on the show today. Okay? I know him as the chairman of Cook County Democratic Party, but I know him from the works that he do in the office as the assessor. And I asked him to come on to the show today to clear up the myth like he's responsible for the tax mess when he's only the assessor.
Gator, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh man, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. As you know, Chairman, everybody need to know who you are as a man, as a human being. So tell my viewing audience something about yourself. Look right there so they can see you.
Well, Gator, you've known me for a whole bunch of years, but
Right.
the way I got started, when my parents came here from Puerto Rico back in 1948, we grew up in the Cabrini Green area. I lived at 1121 North Larrabee for 10 years. After then, at the age of about 16, 17 years old, we moved over to the Humboldt Park community where I got involved in politics. I got involved in the day-to-day stuff. Back then we knocked on doors, we talked to people, we figured out if they had any problems, we figured out how to try to help them. And that was what we did back then. We tried to make life easier for the people that lived in our precincts and in our wards. So that's how I got started. And then back in 1980, we had a redistricting.
Right.
And everyone was talking about creating a Hispanic district back then. And I took part with the MALDIP to try to create a Hispanic district. We had to have a district that was 70% Hispanic. We were able to put that together, but 70% Hispanic doesn't mean a Hispanic's going to win that election.
Right.
So we had to put together coalitions within the other 30% to make sure that we were able to get our message out and we were able to tell people what we stood for. And again, we've always stood for helping people in their day-to-day lives and trying to make it easier for them in government. So I was elected state representative. I was the first Hispanic ever elected to the Illinois legislature in 100 years. I served 6 years there. And then I had the opportunity, and I was part of the Harold Washington Dream Team.
Right.
Back in '88, when I ran for the Cook County Board of Review. Back then it was Cook County Board of Review, which it is today. But the thing is, with that support and that energy, I was able to go from the legislature to there. 7 years ago, I decided to run for the assessor's office after 22 years at the Board of Review. And doing a lot of work and understanding what the system was and how we could help people down at the assessor's office, making it a lot better than it was when I got there. When I got to be elected assessor, and I was the first minority ever elected.
Right.
I mean, you've seen the wall.
Correct.
You've seen the wall.
I've seen the wall.
There's nothing but white faces on there.
Right.
So I was the first minority ever up there. But when I went down there, I inherited a situation where it had been 40 years. 40 years of things that all those assessors let go by the wayside. So I decided to go try to change things at the assessor's office. I decided to go out and do more outreaches and educate the minority community. I decided to make sure, just like Jesse White did when he took over at the driver's license facility as Secretary of State, because back in those days, people would go to the Secretary of State's office and they'd be in there an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours.
That's right.
And Jesse White was able to turn it around and make it an office where people could come up there, get taken care of in 10, 15 minutes, and they were out of there.
Right.
I mean, you're
You know-
supposed to be service friendly. We work for the people. I mean, they don't work for
You
us.
see, that's what the people need to know, because one of the things, as you said, even though when you became the first Hispanic legislator, 70%, but then it was 30% of others within that district. That's something that my wife always be telling me, the wonderful thing that she decided that this show was going to be about. We don't need conflict. We need resolution. You know what I'm saying? Okay.
Yeah.
And the thing I know, I'll be there at the shoe shine stand in the county building. And a lot of people come there, and I take them up to your office to get help. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
And they be shocked, and I'm not a lawyer. You follow what I'm saying? I take them up there. But if you don't come to your office and it's free to get the service, you won't get the service. You follow what I'm saying? And one of the things that they need to know, Joe, is what the reforms that you have put in place in the assessor's offices. Everybody talking about let's reform. Well, tell them what you have reformed from what it was before you got there.
When I first got there were a lot of changes that needed to be made. I mean, it was an office where people weren't being taken care of. People weren't being told of what their rights were. People would come in there, they'd say hello, and push them aside and wouldn't do what they wanted to do. We've instituted policy where we go out into the community now and do outreaches and try to teach people what their rights are. Their number one right when that assessment notice comes out, if it's too high, and everyone's supposed to be assessed at 10% of the fair market value of their property. And if the assessment comes out and it's above that, everyone has the opportunity to file a complaint. And you don't need a lawyer, just like you say.
Right, you don't.
You don't. I mean, you come up there, file a complaint form, because I can't look at it unless you file a complaint form.
Right.
So that's the number one thing. Number two thing, you can file it. We'll do the work for you. We'll help you to put it together. We will also turn around and look up to see if we can find comparable properties that can help you lower that assessment. We don't do the tax bills.
Right.
We don't do the rates.
Right.
We only do the assessments.
Could you say that again for my viewing audience? The things that you don't do, therefore you're not responsible for, is what? You don't do?
We don't send out the tax bills.
Right.
We don't set the rates. That's the other governmental agencies. We just settle on assessments. But the assessment's one of the important processes, because if your assessment's too high, you're going to pay more than what you should when they add the rate to it. But that's not my job. My job is to try to make sure that every assessment in Cook County is fair. And the only way that, we have 1.8 million pieces of property here in Cook County.
Right.
And I don't care who the assessor is. Whether it was Tom Hines, Jim Houlihan, or all those prior assessors. The thing is, no one's going to get 1.8 million assessments correct the first time out, because we don't look at every house. We do the assessment process on a mass appraisal system. We look at neighborhoods. We look at areas. And we take a look at what's going on in those areas, and we set assessments. But there's no way we can pinpoint and go out and look at every household, because then we never get anything done. So the thing is, it's incumbent on individuals to make sure that they're able to file an appeal. They know their rights. They can come by my office. They can come by the Board of Review. They can go to Property Tax Appeal Board. They get 3 shots at lowering their assessment. And the fact that just because they get a reduction from me doesn't mean they can't go to the Board of Review.
Right.
So they can go to 2 places and try to get it reduced. Ours are the quickest way to do it. The Property Tax Appeal Board, if you filed an appeal there, it may take you 2-3 years before you get a decision. But the thing is, that's just one part of the process.
Right.
The other part of the process is, my other hat that I wear is to try to reach out to all the communities and make sure that people have their homeowners exemption.
Right.
And if they're entitled to their senior exemption, that they have that. And the other thing that we have is the senior freeze. I went to Springfield this year, and this is the second time I went to Springfield. I raised the homeowners exemption for people who live on their properties. Mm-hmm. I raised the senior exemption by another approximately $250 for every senior. And I increased the freeze. And the freeze is an exemption that if you make, it used to be 55, I raised it to 65,000. Now more people can qualify. If you make less than 65, you have an opportunity to file for a senior freeze. And that would take your property tax bill and take the assessment back down to the was in the prior assessment period. So that it's frozen at that level. No matter what happens, it can't go any higher, as long as you make under $65,000 a year. But the thing is, all these suggestions that we're getting, that we shouldn't be out there doing workshops, we shouldn't be educating people. No,
you got to educate the people.
You got to educate them. Because you got to remember.
Because they don't know. One thing that people do, they take advantage of the voters with fear tactics. Joe gonna do this, Joe gonna do that, Joe don't care. When I know differently, and while I'm on that subject, just like you and Commissioner Stanley Moore, okay, y'all having a property tax exemption workshop for homeowners, and it's a free community event, okay? That's going to be Monday, and it's from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. at 11211 South St. Lawrence Avenue. Joe, you'd like to elaborate on?
Yes, what we're doing is, this is a time of during the year where we send out all the senior exemptions and asking people to fill those out, because by law, unless they fill those out, I can't give it to them.
Right.
So with Stanley, Commissioner Moore, he's given us the opportunity to come out into his community. He will have seniors come there, but it's open to everyone.
Right.
Stanley's one of those guys that wants to make sure that people get what they're supposed to get as commissioner. And the thing is, we're going to come out into the community. They can come there. If they didn't get the sheet, they can get them there.
Right.
And we'll help them fill them out, and then we'll bring them back downtown, and we'll check to see if they can qualify for the freeze. So it's a workshop where we're going to explain the process, but we're also going to be there to fill out the paperwork for them. And if they've got it at home and they want to bring it with them,
right,
we're going to be out there, so that we can service the people from that community.
Right.
But the thing is, we need to do more of these,
right,
not less of these.
Not less, do more of these. And we're going to start right here, telling our viewing audience. You heard what the assessor said. Bring your paperwork there. The address is 11211 South St. Lawrence, and it's being hosted by Commissioner Stanley Moore and his office, which is accessible to you, and the assessor, Joe Berrios' office, which is accessible to you. In order for them to service you, you got to come to them and allow them to do what you elected them to do. We don't have time for hate. We don't have time for people that never did what he's doing to come and say, let's change and I can do it better. Well, how can you do something better that you never done? You follow what I'm saying? And we don't have that luxury. We see what's happening in Washington because people want to change. We see what's happening in the state government because people want to change. And while we're on that, you're also the chairman of the Cook County Democratic Party. And I know that there's a slate that everyone agreed to. So would you elaborate on who's the slated candidates that's on the Democratic primary slate?
Yeah, we in the Democratic Party is not the old Democratic Party, what it used to be 20, 30 years ago.
Right.
We believe in inclusion. We don't believe in exclusion. So what we do is we get together as a group, and if you look at the slate that we put together, when I first became chairman, I wanted to get rid of what happened in the old days. 4 or 5 guys would get together, put together a slate, and then everybody had to participate and eat it. But today what we do is we get together as a group, and we've got a black caucus within it, we have a Hispanic caucus, we have a suburban caucus, we have a Chicago caucus. But the thing is, we all come together to make sure that the slate is representative of what is here in Cook County. if you look at the slate that we have this year, here in Cook County, you've got Tony Preckwinkle for president. You've got myself for assessor. You have Tom Dart for sheriff. You got Carolyn Yarborough for the first time for Cook County clerk, and she'll be the first minority ever to serve in that office.
Right.
As I was the first minority ever to serve in my office. You got Maria Pappas for the city treasurer. For the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, Deborah Shore, Carrie Steele, Marty Durkin, Kimberly Neely Dubuchette. And then for judges, I mean,
the judges.
And then the judges.
Very important. This is very important. The judges.
It's important that when you come out to vote, don't forget the judges. I mean, we've screened these judges, but if you look at them, if you listen to the names and listen to where they represent our community here in Cook County, we got Orrin Whiting, who's been around for a long time, Jonathan Clark Green, Tom Cianis, Rosemarie Silva, Thomas McGuire, Preston Jones, who's been in the community for a long time, Cecilia Ann Horan, Clarence Joyce Quish, Peter Michael Gonzalez, and Jack Haggerty. And you have at the Board of Review level, in the 2nd District, Mike Carbonargi, in the 3rd District, Larry Rogers. These are people that have been screened here in Cook County that we, as the Cook County Democratic Party, have endorsed. But if you listen to the names, and you can hear the names, and you can tell what the ethnicity is and where they represent. It's a coming together of everybody from the entire Cook County.
Right.
And then we know for the state of Illinois, for governor, we picked J.B. Pritzker to be our nominee.
Good candidate.
Yep, and we have our stalwart of the party who's been there forever doing one of the best jobs that I think any statewide official has done for the people of the state of Illinois, Secretary of State Jesse White.
Yep, #1 vote getter.
Yep, and then for Attorney General, we've endorsed Kwame Raoul, who deserves your vote, and we need your help on that.
He deserves it.
Comptroller Susanna Mendoza, Treasurer Mike Fredericks. You don't see just one ethnicity in this slate.
Right.
You see a lot of ethnicity, which is important.
And the slate has a balance of men and women.
Yes.
On the ticket.
Yeah, but last time around, and you don't want to say, well, a lot of people came out and voted and didn't vote the whole ticket. They did the top of the ticket, they did the middle of the ticket, then they forgot about the back of the ticket.
I'm glad you mentioned that. There is nothing, I don't care if you're the President of the United States, the President of the County Board, the Mayor of the city, or the Chairman of the Democratic Party. The judges are the most important people that's on this slate because each one of those individuals I named is going to have to come before a judge. And a lot of you that's out there that say that you want justice, you need to start, to me, you need to start at the bottom of the ticket first and work your way up because you got to elect them judges. And you got to pay attention to the judges that's coming to the bench. I know because I've helped elect a lot of judges and I've been out there. And I know them. And I study them. And as an urban translator, I bring it back to the community. And that's one of the reasons that I reached out to you, Chairman, for you to come on to this show so that people can understand that there's no little me's or no big U's, that you deal with the people in the streets like you deal with those in the suites. You follow what I'm saying? Yep. With the same message. And I'm telling you, he be at the shoe shine stand. Everybody come past the shoe shine stand at 118 North Clark. I mean, everybody, whether you elected or appointed or just walking through, everybody stop there. They talk politics. They're able to talk to elected officials, and they're able to share their opinions. So, if you're not involved, you shouldn't criticize. And one of the things I want to say, a vote for Joe as the assessor is someone that's going to continue to do what's right for the assessor's office to help you with your property. Trying to bring somebody else in that has no idea what is happening. I can see if it was somebody in that office that wanted to run and they've been working there for 20, 30 years. They know what to do. But here's someone that just come. I can't even mention the man now. I ain't know his name. I know he's one of them hedge fund guys that just say, hey, he want to come in, and it amazes me how they talk reform. But they haven't been in the office and saw how you changed it from what it was to what it is today.
And people, before we go on to that subject, people have to understand one thing. We elect judges from our community for one reason. We want to elect black judges. We want to elect Hispanic judges. We want to elect gay judges. We want to elect judges from throughout Cook County. Because, when you go to court, you want to have someone sitting on that bench that's from your community, who will understand the problems of that community. So that, they can, not to say they're going to rule in your favor, but they understand what you're going through, and, and they know where you're coming from, and they know the trials and tribulations that you have to go through in the community. And sometimes, sometimes the police department goes a little overboard and then they arrest people for things they shouldn't be arresting them from, and you want somebody on that bench that understands it. As far as my opponent, my opponent is a multimillionaire. He made his money with his company by investing in private prisons,
Right.
who basically have our people in them. And if you look at what the allegations have been from, they're non-union. Number
Right,
one,
that's right.
they're
That's right.
non-union. They're also people that, if they can keep you in there longer,
They'll do that.
they'll do that. They take immigrants. They've even put kids in these private prisons,
And not
holding them for deportation.
Right, that's what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
I was reading where now, because of the president that's there, they trying to make them detention centers a new form.
Yeah, they are detention.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
they are detention centers. But why are you putting young kids in these prisons when they haven't created
no
crime? But the thing, they're holding pins until they can deport them.
Right.
That's wrong.
It is
Absolutely wrong.
And you know something? Because my show about to wrap up, but one of the things people need to know, the accomplishments that you are most proud of that you've done since you've been in that office. That's yourself.
My biggest accomplishment, within that office, is the educational process that we've put in. We've tried to increase exemptions for the seniors because of the fact that they deserve it. They've been paying taxes forever. They can't afford it. And we've got to get the word out to those people who are 65 and over,
Right.
who had never applied for it. I had a young lady, I call her young because she was 65 and I'm
Right.
65.
Right.
She came in, she's 69 years old. She had not filed. She did not know she could file for this. We were able to get her refunds for 4 years. That's money she didn't have to pay.
Right.
This is money that belonged to her. So we're getting her a refund so she can use that money to pay for her other bills that she's got.
Right.
And for this year, her property tax is going to be even lower because she filled out the paperwork. So my biggest thing is we've got to get the word out. And we've started the process to correct some of the ill wills that were there 40, 50 years
Right.
ago. So we're going to be coming out with a new product which will help us get better at what we do.
Right.
But the thing is, people can't expect me to go in there. I mean, I know that the Tribune doesn't like the fact that minorities in that office.
They're right.
They don't write about the good things. They just write about what they think. But they never beat up on the other prior assessors.
Right. They never. But
No.
but just like I was sharing with a young lady today, she was coming in. You and I know what the whole situation is. You earned the right to be there. You put in plenty work. Back then it was you get rewarded for the work that you put in. You know what I mean? You earned that, okay? But one of the things that I admire about your office, and I see you all over the county, you have no problem with reaching out to the people. And one of the things I want to public state to my viewing audience, I want to aid and assist you in that matter. You know what I'm saying? And I support you. I make no mistake about it. I support you because you're doing the right things, like you said. And I'm telling our viewing audience, sometimes we pay a penalty because we don't know, but we pay a double penalty when we don't ask the question.
I agree with you, and that's what we're
You know what I'm saying? And again, my time's about to be up. Got to wrap it up. I see them giving the hand sign. They crossing in. I see you. I want to say, Chairman, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for
and
having me
hey,
there.
vote, vote, vote. And with that, to God be the glory. And I'm out of here.